Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Pint of Science. We're really happy to see you all here in person. It's very surreal to finally be at an event where, a workshop where we actually need to get dressed like normal people and make conversation in between sessions. It's very nice to see you all not on Zoom, in other words. So thank you all for coming along despite the lovely weather outside. My name's Michael Creek, and I'll be your facilitator for this evening. And it's not a typical Pint of Science. You might know Pint of Science already, and you might have participated in previous years or in other online sessions this year. It's an international festival bringing researchers into your local pubs and cafes to share their expertise and enter into dialogue with the rest of us, bringing science into local, familiar contexts, active in 29 countries. And so last year, there were 140,000 participants in 400 cities, of which I think 14 or so in Belgium. All around the world. And it takes place for 3 days in May every year, although, of course, this year, things are a little bit different. It's not every event that I have to bring along disinfectant and a cloth for the microphone. So we're hoping that we can still recreate that Pint of Science atmosphere in this slightly different context. So thank you for coming along and joining in with us. There's only 2 in-person events this year in Pint of Science. So one of them in Namur, and this is the other. So please save the date already for the 2021 edition. Next year it will take place from 17th to 19th of May, and hopefully a little more in person than online, although who knows with the way things are going. So we're really happy tonight to bring some great speakers. First of all, we'll be hearing from a whole range of perspectives. And again, it's a Pint of Science with a twist tonight. We're running a consultation because we want to hear what you have to say about how to make a greener Brussels by 2030. This consultation is being held as part of the European Commission's wider consultation on their new missions for their Horizon Europe program. What this is, we'll hear a bit more about later. And so, of course, there's some ground rules, and again, it's a bit different. We unfortunately have to ask you to please wear your mask at all times. So although the speakers won't need to wear a mask, we will be disinfecting the mic in between and trying to keep this 1.5 meters of distance between each other, unless, of course, you came with your bubble, in which case it's fine to sit closer together. So please keep an eye, don't move the seats around too much to keep that distance. For drinks and food, you don't need to order at the bar. We have our lovely friends from Tricoterie. You can just raise your hand. They'll be at the back of the room. They will come and take your order. You can pay by cash, by bank contact, or credit card. So you have the menus on your table. There's also some cold plates if you're feeling a little bit hungry. And there's crisps and olives. We're filming tonight. If you don't wish to be filmed, no problem. Please move to the table in the back right and ask if you can swap with somebody if you prefer not to be filmed. We won't be filming that end. So if you're sitting elsewhere, you're consenting to be filmed. For the toilets, it's just through the bar at the back. So you can find your way out that way. And we'll have a little break at about halfway through. We'll have a 5-minute break. So just so you know ahead of time. Okay, before we get started, a big thanks to Innoviris, who are supporting the festival, even in these difficult times we're living in, the team at Tricoterie, and our Pint of Science volunteers, who will also be our facilitators later on in the consultation, for doing a great job, as always. And thank you for making that extra effort to join us in this unusual context. So I'm Michael Creek. I'm from Sticky Dots, which is Brussels community space for science engagement. And so I'll be running your facilitation later on. But first, it's time to introduce our first speaker, who is Parita Lindholm from ERIN. It's the European Network for Regions of Research and Innovation. And so she'll be explaining a bit better than I could about these missions of Horizon Europe, what this means, where the outcome of your consultation this evening will go. So I'll quickly disinfect your mic and I'll let you make a start.
Thank you very much for inviting me to introduce you to the mission on climate neutral and smart cities, and where the objective is to create 100 climate neutral cities by 2030. So today I'm going to speak as my role as a member of an assembly supporting the development of this mission and this exciting new initiative. But my daily job is at ERIN, so the European Regions Research and Innovation Network. We are a network that I have a chance to work with over 100 regional organizations, such as Brussels Hub and Innoviris, on various research and innovation topics every day. And what is important for my organization is the bringing different actors together. So this ecosystem thinking, working with administrations, researchers, private sector, citizen. So you will hear during my presentations why I'm also very much engaged and interested in this mission. So what I'm going to talk a little bit now is first to introduce what is a mission and why it's important to have those missions. Tell you a little bit about what has been currently proposed for this mission, and then very shortly say some words about the next steps. So the idea of having missions for research and innovation comes basically from the realization that the European level research and innovation policy and activities were or are maybe still too far from the realities of everyday concerns. So they are not really speaking to the citizen. Therefore, the mission should really increase the impacts of the research and innovation, and also bring that research and innovation policy and activities closer to the citizen. So therefore, what is important in these missions is a kind of clear direction, target, measurable targets, and a kind of a time frame by when the objective should be reached. It's also about bringing together different sectors and different actors, and of course, very much about engaging citizen kind of to the whole life cycle of the mission. So thus, these type of discussions with guys like you, it's really an important part of, on one hand, of the design of the mission, but also then will be part of the implementation and monitoring of the different activities. So there are 5 mission areas that have been identified. All of them are very crucial societal challenges. And the work to define what would be the actual mission in those 5 areas is currently happening. So today I will focus on this mission on climate neutral and smart cities. So this mission is really the one that looks at more the mitigation aspects of climate change, so transport, energy efficiency, renewables, and so on. But there's, of course, connection also to the other mission, which is the adaptation to climate change, which is then focusing more on the resilience and how to adapt to the impacts of the climate change. And both those missions are very important for regional and local level, and regions and communities have been identified as a key actor in those both areas. So for all the missions there are groups of 15 high-level experts that are developing basically the concept for those missions. So what is interesting there is that it's a very special situation that there is a group of 15 experts kind of developing a new program for European level. And this group is always consisting of different types of people. There's also, they've sought to have gender and geographical balance, and coming from different actor groups and different sectors. So I mentioned in the beginning that I'm part of the mission assembly. So this is the second layer, the experts that are also engaged to support and also kind of multipliers to pass on the messages and engaging further people to the missions. So you can see the members of the mission board for climate neutral and smart cities here. The group is chaired by Hanna Kronkiewicz-Waltz, who is the former mayor of Warsaw. So she's the one who's kind of leading the work towards the mission. And so answering to the question of why missions are so important is really this a new way of working that aims to involve a broad number of stakeholders and citizens, really in the start of creating the concept of the mission. And then maybe going more on why a mission on climate neutral and smart cities is so important. Of course, we can look at it from the fact that a lot of the emissions come from cities, and also most parts of the energy is consumed in cities. But also there are a lot of opportunities for innovation in cities. And we can see that there are already a number of big initiatives, and the cities are quite a lot leading that work on, let's say they are front runners in climate action. There are initiatives like the Covenant of Mayors, where we have European-wide more than 10,000 municipalities committed to reduce their CO2 emissions or go beyond the European climate and energy targets. And of course, we have now the Green Deal, which is the big new priority for the European level. And there, the objective is to make Europe the first climate neutral continent by 2050. And they are also very much highlighting there the importance of involving both the local and regional level and the different actors in that context. So some words about what has been proposed now for this mission. You can read here, support, the aim is to create 100 climate neutral cities by 2030 by and for the citizen. The aim is to support and promote and showcase 100 European cities in their systemic transformation towards climate neutrality, and make those cities into experimentation and innovation hubs for all cities, thus leading the European Green Deal and efforts to become the climate neutral continent by 2050. So there it's really about having 100 climate neutral cities, and as a kind of a step towards making the whole Europe climate neutral by 2050. A couple of words on how. The objective is to implement this mission through a climate city contract. Basically, this means, on one hand, engaging all the government levels, from European to local, to work together towards this goal. And on the other hand, it's the creating kind of new collaborative governance by engaging all the stakeholders and citizens in this process at the local level. So 2 layers, so like horizontal and vertical collaboration. It might sound simple, but in practice, this means pretty much changing how we work and how different administrations are working. So it's a kind of yeah, it's a big attempt to change also the way that the governments are taking their role in facilitation and bringing really this all the people together around one table. So it's really I would say, the social innovation in this mission. And then the other elements are really around looking at what have been the key barriers for cities becoming climate neutral and trying to turn those into opportunities. So as mentioned, the new governance model, that's the first one. Then integrated cross-sectoral systemic transformation, so working in a very integrated way. Investment strategy, there are a number of climate strategies out there, but not all have an investment plan. So it's really about also to think about how can all this be financed. We know that it's not cheap. And then creating cities as innovation hubs. So using also so of course there's the social innovation part that is crucial in this one, but also using digital transformation as a kind of enabler for all this. So basically this is the outline of what should be the process now, or what is proposed as a process for the mission. So the idea is to collect the expressions of interest from cities to join the mission, and this should be done together with all the local partners. Then there would be the next step, co-creating the climate city contract, and then of course the implementation, and finally the monitoring of the mission. And of course in the monitoring, the end point should be that by 2030 the city or the district or let's say the area that has been defined for this mission has mitigated or offsetted all their greenhouse gas emissions. We all know that, I mean, I have seen many climate strategies. I have never seen one where transport missions have been totally mitigated by 2030. So this probably means some offsetting activities as well. And then to end with the next steps, is continuous citizen engagement. You can see Brussels mentioned here. So there have been a number of citizen discussions in different places in Europe. This will continue. This is only a start. And then the kind of formally, the next step is the handover of the mission proposal to the commissioner during the Research and Innovation Days very soon, so 22nd of September. And then, of course, the work does not stop there. It's only a beginning. So then hopefully, as of next year, the process will start and we will have many cities working towards their climate neutrality. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Parita. Yeah, really great to give us a bit of the broader European context and to see that, yeah, our work today can also really make a difference. So we've talked about climate city contracts, but how can this apply in the Brussels local context? Well, we're very happy to have Barbara Trachter here with us, and who better to tell us a bit more than the Secretary of State. In your portfolio, you have the economic transition and also scientific research. So yeah, we're really happy to have you here and hear a little more about how this can apply to a city like Brussels. I'll give you this mic, actually.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm really glad to be here tonight. And I would like first to thank you for your presence. It means a lot in these times, and it shows also the growing interest around cities and climate change, and that's really exciting. It's exciting to me, and it's exciting for my government, the government of our city region. I would also like to thank you, Mrs. Lindholm, for this presentation and of this mission. And this mission is really ambitious and also timely, given the pandemic we are facing right now. To envision research and innovation through a mission approach will help us to build a resilient society, and we cannot not achieve it without involving citizens, without involving all of you in this process. So we know that climate change impacts people's lives in many ways. It affects access to clean air and water, access to food, and recently we saw the devastating effects it can also have on our health. We also know that climate change is impacting urban and rural area, and it requires to set up a connected and targeted approach, which will help us plan for adaptation in each territory in the best possible way. So in Brussels, more and more research and innovation initiatives involving citizens are taking place. They question topics such as better quality of life, better mobility, more access to nature, and more social cohesion. In parallel, we know that at the European level, national level, and regional levels, policymakers are also developing dedicated strategies. So it's important to build bridges between them. And I'm glad that in Brussels one can find some good examples of this collaboration, such as the Wilco initiative. I think this initiative will be presented to you in a moment. Thanks to the ambition of the European Commission with these missions, we can further develop this new paradigm and include citizens in a long-term reflection about what research and innovation can bring to solve the big challenges of our time. I believe that this new mode of governance will allow for the development of solutions that are adapted to different realities. It will also, in turn, pave the way for common regulatory framework that designs pilot projects thanks to the use of local intelligence and local knowledge. This is, for instance, very useful in the field of urban planning, which is a very crucial aspect of resilient cities developments. We cannot deny the challenges facing us today. Our cities are now dealing with rising environmental, social, and public health challenges. The Brussels region, among other cities worldwide, is reinventing itself. I hope you can see it or hear it. Reinventing its public spaces, its mobility, its relationship to nature. And this reflection process, in this reflection process, I'm thrilled to know that citizens will have more and more opportunities to reflect, exchange views, and discuss solutions. And I'm really happy that we can now do it by being really together again. So with the Horizon Europe mission, and especially with the carbon neutral city mission, the European Union is asking European citizens to make their voices heard. Tonight, together, I know that you will show the European Union that people in Brussels have a lot to say and are ready to contribute ideas and potential solutions. So I'm really grateful for that.
Thanks so much, Barbara. Yeah, as you say, if we want resilient city, we need to draw on local intelligence and local knowledge. And what better than the people in this room to have their say on what this climate city contract should look like. But somebody who's been working a lot on how to engage people locally in Brussels on these types of questions using participatory methods is Philippe Mertens from Brulocalis. We're really happy to have him along tonight to tell us a bit more. He is from Brulocalis, which is the Association of the City and Municipalities of Brussels. So give him a big round of applause.
Hello to everyone. Nice to see more than 5 people. Uh, well, yeah, I'm here to talk about Vilco, in French, Ville collaborative, which translates in English, the collaborative city. Well, it started in 2017 until 2020. It's a study paid by Innoviris in co-create with 5 partners, Bruxelles, my association, Bruxelles Environnement, which is the regional administration for environment, Fondation pour les Générations Futures, Strategic Design Scenario, 21 Solutions, which are 3 think tanks or experts working on participation on with citizens, different things. I don't go into details, but everything is in the publication that I will give the details later on. And we had living labs, that's the way we were working. And these living labs, we had 4 municipalities out of the 19 from Brussels, Bruxelles-Ville, Etterbeek, Uccle, Watermal-Boisfort, 1 regional administration, Bruxelles Environnement, of course, and citizen groups. They were mainly transition towns and Quartier Durable Citoyen, which is a Brussels initiative working around, well, sustainability in the neighborhoods. Well, the start of the city. Our aim was to work with all the positive forces for a sustainable and resilient city. The main question of the study was, how can local authorities and citizen groups work together? With a second question, which was, will governance of tomorrow's cities be with citizens rather than for citizens? That's an important, well, change in governance. I hope you, in English it translates as well as in French. Well, that's the path of our project, Problematic Vilco, which is the start, and we are here now, dissemination, so we get the results to other people. There were 5 steps in this. In 3 years, we had five steps. The first one was the state of play, état des lieux. So how is the situation on the ground in Brussels? Second was, well, what are the issues? We have to identify them and build scenarios to respond to the issues. And so how did we build the scenarios and the response? Through experimentation that went through in, well, all the neighborhoods we worked inside. And then the last step, which is now exchange and capitalization of experiences. So the living labs here, you have 5 living labs, 4 with municipalities, and the one in Centre Bruxelles Environnement with the regional administration. And all had citizens involved inside these living labs. Well, after our study, we had 50 possible experimentation. That was projects that we want to build with citizens, but of course that was way too much for the time we had. So we had to select some of them with a few criteria. It was, well, inside every experiment, there had to be local authorities and citizens, of course, that was compulsory to have both. We have to a possible replicability, sorry, in English it sounds so weird. But well, yeah, we had to make that an example and that we could reproduce them in other cities, of course, because well, the title was New Governance in Brussels, but well, it could really be an example for different cities, I think. And another one was, well, Vilco partners were needed. We wanted to, well, to be involved into the experiment and not leave the people and the local authorities just together. You'll see the third party is a very important element in our collaborative process. And another one was a local choice. Of course, we ask people, we ask local authorities, what is your favorite experiment? Which one do you want to play? Which one do you want to go with? And then we went down to 15 experimentation, and I'll just, well, present a few of these. Well, that's the list of the 15. It's in French, sorry, I didn't have time to translate them, but well, yeah, it's not that difficult, I mean, to understand. The first one, which is occasional use of buildings that went through in Brussels City. It was, well, every city has lots of buildings, lots of places that are unused at night or during the day. So could we share these places with the people, with the citizen? And well, it was very successful. La Ville de Bruxelles wants to try that and have an experiment that becomes reality and well, make it something like systemic to go through these, that it would be available for citizens, these buildings that are not used every day at every hour. Another one, which is co-create a local event in Guatemala-Boisfort. People build a market with the local authorities. Another one, well, that's the regional call for projects. It's a call for project for citizens, and well, citizens find it way too difficult to answer. The procedures were too hard, too time-consuming and everything. So they went through a process to simplify the administrative procedures for the citizens, for this call for project. It was with Brussels Environnement. Another one, which went in Uccle, is discover your municipality from the inside. They took people inside the administration to discover how it works. So people went inside the administration. It was, well, late in the afternoon, and see, well, what are the difficulties? Why does it take so much time to have an answer to my question and everything like that? So it was very interesting for both parts. I mean, time for a local administration is very different from the time for the citizens. So, well, very big discovery for both. Well, that's the publication, La Ville Collaborative, which is available in French and Dutch. It's 116 pages, downloadable on our website, Wilco Brussels. And, well, I'll have just one more slide or two to say, well, at the end of all this study, what are our tips for a better collaboration? And, well, we go into much more details inside the publication. It's the first one, it's build a relation of trust between the citizen and the authorities. That's a very important step to begin the collaboration. The second one, you have to have something concrete. I mean, the administration, the city, or the citizen, they both go into a project to have results. If you don't have results, I mean, there's no way, there's no point in collaborating. So you have to have insight that you need to have something concrete and results to your process. Another one is the care for the condition of collaboration. I mean, yeah, you organize something, an event, a reunion, you have to, well, to be, how do you say that in English? Accueil, l'accueil, I don't remember. Sorry? Oh yeah, welcoming people, well, you have to welcome them in a certain way, at certain time of the day, because, well, the time for citizen, once again, is different. Citizens, they're free on the evenings, and, well, administration is closed, of course, in the evening, so you have to find a time together, but there are lots more of things, but, well, you have really to take care for these things. Another one is, let's get out of our usual postures and patterns. I mean, politics, they have a place in society, but in a reunion with citizens, they don't have to have the same place. I mean, let's just change the place of everyone, and everyone's together, everyone is the same, and let's be inclusive also. Well, the happy few that collaborate or participate, that's not very interesting. I mean, you have to be wide and have lots of people, different people that collaborate. And the last one I already talked about, if necessary, it's necessary to have help. The trusted third party is very important. I mean, just citizen, city, there must be something in between both. Experts, anything, people that want to be involved in the process, but help is very important. But all these tips, just be careful. They have their limits. One important rule is there's no common recipe for success. I mean, if you just see those 6 tips and you say, well, I'll have these and I'll have a process, successful one, I don't think so. You have to adapt it to the specific context, to the actors, to the circumstances, and of course, very important, take your time for custom made. That's very important. Every process has to be custom made for, well, the actors, the circumstances, the context, everything. That's very important. Thank you very much.
So much. Thank you, Philippe, but wait. You finished early, which is great. This means, yeah, it's perfect. That means we have 5 minutes for any questions that you might have for Philippe. Would you like to pick his brains about how to make participation work in cities, in a city like Brussels? Sure.
My question is a very practical one. How did you reach out to citizens? How did you cross some language barriers? Because Brussels is also a very international city. And I think we can say by now that also English speakers, for example, are part of the city and the way that it's shaped. And then you have the Dutch and the French language, so it's a very practical question. How did you reach out to the citizens? Because, for example, yeah, I wonder, like, how do you hear of these initiatives? How can you take part? How do you spread it in local communities?
Okay, well, that was a study, so it wasn't open to everyone at every time, well, but we had experts that were working already with citizens. That's the way we recruit some. As you've seen, it's only citizen groups. I mean, it's not individual people that were allowed. That's not a good word, but we worked with citizens that was already in some kind of way in groups. That's one thing. For the language, well, we're used to work in two languages, that's no problem. Dutch and French, it's no problem. And we didn't have any problem with people that didn't understand English. No, that's no trouble. I mean, what's your question is very interesting, because I said, let's be inclusive. That's the real point. How do we get to poor people, to certain neighborhoods? That's the real question, but I don't have the answer, really, no. I think you have to adapt to these people, of course, and probably speak their language and go to the people, but we didn't try that. I mean, if you go for the most difficult thing, when you start a study, that's a very thought one. So we made it probably the easy way, but yeah, if we go on, we'll probably go that direction indeed, yeah, to go to different kind of, or different groups of people.
Does anyone have experience on inclusivity in participation that you might like to share on this topic? Or another question? Yep.
Thanks. The last point you made about take your time for a custom-made, I found it interesting, and I tend to agree. But is there something that you could take out of your study that you could also apply to any other city or community in a more general way? Like, apart from being custom-made, is there something that you think will apply for another community or city?
Do you have a community or city in mind you're thinking about?
No, not really. Not just, but okay, if we can, you know, replicate things that we learn in one place into another, that's good.
Sorry, we're very careful. We don't want to give lessons. So I think our tips are rather universal, but don't take them for words. I mean, there are probably different things in your city because the situation is different. But I think the 6 ones are universal with some limits, I'd say. Well, first, know your context before you take them in. You know, don't take them for granted. But I think advice that should work everywhere. We made some tools too. You know, when we made some experimentation, we had to create, and they were made to measure the tools for these experiments. You can probably use them, but well, with some caution, I'd say.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, for your questions. Thanks again, Philippe, for your presentation. A round of applause, please. And someone else with a great deal of experience in participation and making it inclusive is Marzia Mazzanetto from Be Participation, which is the Belgian citizen platform for citizen participation, I should say. And so we're going to be hearing a bit more about the Transform project and co-creation and participation more broadly. So a round of applause, please, for Marzia.
Hello, good evening to everyone. Thank you, Michael, for the introduction. I'm really happy to be here today with you. So yes, Be Participation is a local association based in the Marolles, and we really focus on participation in a lot of fields, but my specific field of expertise is how to make this participation happen in research and innovation. So what is all this thing about co-creation? I think you probably heard about it a lot. I think there are lots of things, more and more things happening about participation. And sometimes it takes different names. So sometimes maybe you heard about it under the name of social innovation. Sometimes maybe you heard talking about socially responsible research and innovation. Sometimes we talk about collective intelligence. There are lots of ways of defining this amazing process that brings people together with very different expertise and leads to something new. I'm really curious to know, I guess today you're here because you like beer, you like Pint of Science a lot. You probably wanted to finally be in an event with other people. That's probably also a good reason. But how many of you have already been involved in a consultation before? Okay, good. So, wow, it's the first time for many today. Oof, no pressure. Okay, fantastic. So for me, one of the first amazing experiences I had in consultation was in 2013. I was really lucky to be the coordinator of a big European initiative that was called Voices. What happened was that all of a sudden the European Commission decided to consult citizens all over Europe about what do we do with waste management? How do we make waste management work better for the citizens? It's a big question because when we think about it, think about waste management, there are really high-level technologies to treat waste in waste plants. But think about how you deal with waste at home. It takes a lot of space, it stinks. The collection sometimes is quite complex. If you're not at home on the day you have to put your garbage out, things can become complex at home. So there is a huge potential of collective intelligence that citizens can bring to research and innovation to underline needs that maybe sometimes are not taken into account by research and innovation themselves. So what did we do? We actually started this big consultation process. So we had more than 1,000 citizens involved all over Europe. And it was events a bit like we are doing today, so very similar format. And we started from drawings. So talking about inclusions, we had citizens from all different backgrounds. So we also had people who could not read and write. So we used a lot of drawings to be able to be very inclusive. This is a good technique to overcome such type of difficulties. And we first asked them to think about how they deal with waste at home. You could probably do the same, and you can really see the range of situations that you can have when you deal with waste, ranging from someone being really attentive and taking really care of how they deal with the waste. So separating plastic, paper, clothes, organic waste, furniture, everything you can think of has a different waste stream. And you have to be aware of it, and you have to be careful with it. Up to someone who said, yeah, I don't believe in it, I just throw everything in the same bin. And that was a really great starting point. We have to be honest about things, and we have to listen also to the people who say, I don't care, I just throw it all in the same bin. That's really a very important starting point. And then we asked people to come up with ideas on how to make this process work better. And we didn't think only about the household level, but in general. So think of 50 years from now. How do you think that waste will be managed in the future? So people came up with some funny ideas. For example, they said, yeah, why don't we send waste to space? So we just stopped worrying about it. Why don't we dig up? So now we can recycle a lot of things, but until maybe 20, 30 years ago, it was not possible to recycle. So there are lots of dumps where there are very valuable materials that we could recycle nowadays. So why don't we dig up old dumps and reuse those materials? Of course, at first, when looking at these ideas that came up, you can think, people don't know anything about it, it's really stupid, but actually it's not. We had a group of researchers involved in the process, and they told us that there are a lot of researchers actually studying these kind of things to see if they are possible. So there is real research going on these ideas. They came up from citizens who hadn't received any information about, any previous information about waste management before coming to the event. And also citizens said, one of the key priorities for the future should be to make all the plastic recyclable. And that's where the European Commission, so this consultation was being funded by the European Commission, a bit like we are doing today, and that's where the Commission was really surprised, because they didn't think that the people were aware of one of the key priorities for waste management. So at the time, in 2013, the huge priority for the European Commission was we need to make all plastic recyclable. A lot of the plastic that we use nowadays still cannot be recycled. So it was really surprising for the European Commission to see that a lot of people were aware of this. And then they also came up with some really interesting ideas that scientists and policymakers started thinking about, that could be interesting. So for example, they said, if you think about our home, how can it be possible that in 2013, but I would say also 2020, because not much has changed, we still have to take so much space to put our waste, to handle all these different waste streams. Why there is not, for example, a space when every time we build a new building, why don't we foresee already a space in the wall for putting all your waste bins, for example? Or why is there not a collecting point within the building where you can put all your waste together? Why does it still have to take so much space at home? So it was pretty amazing to see how in 27 different countries, people, without having talked to each other, they all came up with the same idea. Why don't we create smart bins? Why don't we have some bins where, for example, you can scan the barcode of what you buy, and at first it tells you if you are throwing away the thing in the right place, but also it maybe also give you a reward. And that was another very big important point that came up. Why are we always punished when we do something wrong, but we never get any incentive when we do something right? And these incentives do not need to be just for a personal level, so just for myself, but they can also be for the community. So for example, people were saying, we know that a lot of plastic and paper that is being recycled, it's sold to companies that then make a lot of money out of this process. Why don't we do it for the public good? So why don't we set up processes where, for example, the energy that is generated by incineration is used to heat up public spaces, for example. And there is a city in Germany where this happens. So there was a huge level of awareness of very important challenges that need to be tackled. And this was really inspiring for scientists and the policymakers involved. Now, I would like to know how many of you think that the ideas that came up in this consultation were useful for something? I see some optimism in the room. Maybe it's the beer that starts to kick in. Actually, it was really interesting because, okay, I know people normally have favorite football players. I have favorite commissioners, European commissioners. I know, it's weird, it's me. So this was the commissioner for research and innovation at the time when we did this big consultation in 2013. She's a fantastic, very inspiring Irish woman. It's still impossible for me to pronounce her name. I think, Michael, you can pronounce it. Okay, let's not try it. You can read it. We don't need to say it. But what she did, so not only she asked for this consultation to happen, but then she talked back to the citizens and she made a video that was translated in all the different languages of the European Union, where she explained to the citizens, she thanked them, and she explained to the citizens why it was important what they had come up with and how it was being used in future funding for research and innovation. So following this consultation, there were a lot of fundings that were put into implementing some of the ideas and priorities that came up from the consultation. And I think this is a really important point. I totally agree with a lot of priorities that Philippe has mentioned. And maybe if I can add one point to the list is knowing what I'm contributing to. I think having the Secretary of State tonight is really, really important because it gives us a feeling of how much we can contribute, how much we can make a difference. The commitment of the policymakers who engage people in a consultation process is, for me, one of the most important points, knowing that I can do something, I can change something. Now, I'm going to very quickly, and then I will stop, jump to today. I actually, as Michael mentioned, I'm working on a project now here in Brussels, something that is happening here. It is called Transform. It is also funded by the European Commission. And we are a group of 4 partners, so there are lots of institutions involved all over Europe. It is taking place in Lombardy, in Catalonia, and here in Brussels, so 3 regions involved who have decided to experiment in circular economy. So the focus here in Brussels is on how to make circular economy more participatory. Innoviris is involved in the project, and this is really great, exactly for the reason I was saying before. The role of the policymakers is really important in this process. And we have 2 more institutions involved. The university in Louvain-la-Neuve, UCL Louvain-la-Neuve, and an institution here in Brussels that is called MAD Brussels. And it's mostly involving designers. So we are really putting a lot of expertise around the table here. Why? Because there is a very important element to consultations that we are trying to make happen in Transform, that is not only bringing citizens around the table. So of course, the collective intelligence that can emerge from citizens is really important, but we need to have a lot of different expertise talking together around the table. So in this case, for example, we have scientists talking to designers, talking to policymakers, talking to citizens. So we are going to see what happens. The project has just recently started. But I can already give you one tiny example. We have been thinking about how to recycle, I don't know how you call in English, this thing that cover the bush, this thing that cover buildings when they are being renovated, these big plastic covers. Normally they get thrown away. But MAD has recently done a project where they have reused them. So along with the local association, they have turned this big plastic thing into bags that can be used. And they are very nice, actually very nice designer. They have amazing designer working there. And you can think, okay, this isn't a good example of circular economy. But when you bring the scientists in, the scientists will tell you, you know, these plastic things are made of a very complex plastic that is very difficult to treat when you throw it away. So maybe it's not so good to turn them into bags, because it means that your plastic, that this huge plastic thing that covers building, so if you throw it away all in one piece, it's easier to treat than if you break it into a lot of tiny pieces and you make very nice bags with it. But then one day this bag will be thrown away, people will stop using them, and it becomes really complex then to handle the treatment of this kind of waste later on. And that's really, for me, the huge potential of multi-stakeholder engagement there, is when you bring a lot of expertise together, and what I would add there is also the community engagement. So if we need to think of a good way to reusing these big plastic things that can be useful to a community, to the citizens, in a way that is also sustainable. And my very last slide, and I will stop, is something we are focusing on in Transform, but is very relevant in general, is also how do we measure research and innovation? So we are talking about how to make our future better. Research and innovation play a very important role in this process. But if we look at the official ways of measuring research and innovation, how is a region considered to be successful in research and innovation? Does anyone know? Normally, what is officially measured, if you look at official innovation scoreboards, yes, they exist. If you look on the website of the European Commission, you will find official innovation scoreboard. Basically, it's the turnover it generates, but also patents, jobs that are created, which are, of course, very important elements. But nobody ever looks at, for example, was there a gender balance in the process that led to that advancement in that research or in that innovation process? That's something that is never considered as a good indicator to look at research and innovation. Nobody ever looks at, is it a sustainable advancement? So in terms of societal responsibility, is it something that is sustainable? Is it something that is in line with the future that people want for their city? This is never considering the indicators that measure research and innovation. Finally, how open is the research and innovation that is being produced? So maybe you as citizens, without knowing, you are contributing data to that research and innovation process. But how is this process transparent and open? These are things that are never rarely measured when we look at how regions are performing in terms of research and innovation. And this is also something that we are trying to do in Transform. How do we make research and innovation more societally responsible in the sense of looking at things that are not exclusively about advancement or making more money or creating more jobs or more patents. That are, of course, important things, but they are not the only important elements. So this was just a few hints to some experiences I had in this field. I hope it was useful. And if you'd like to know more about the projects, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Mattia. We maybe have time for one quick question. If there's any burning issues. Otherwise, let's move to the break and we stay on schedule. So we'll have a 5-minute break before we come back, and you will find some facilitators popping up at your table to start our consultation. So don't go anywhere. In 5 minutes, we'll start back, and it will be time to have your say. So thanks very much for your participation in this first half. See you after the break. Okay, welcome back. It's time to get into the consultation. So, how is this going to work? What is this all about? The idea was we wanted to take this opportunity to get your ideas on how we can make Brussels a greener city by 2030. What can local authorities do to make a difference? So this is your chance to have your say. We're going to be running this as a real consultation, and the results we will take, and they will feed in to the broader consultation that the European Commission is making about these missions for climate and smart cities. So we want to know, what's your vision? How do you picture a greener Brussels in 2030? What are your priorities? What do you think local governments need to focus on in Brussels to achieve your common vision? And your ideas. So concretely, what should these actions look like? What needs to take place? So this is a process that we've squeezed into an hour, and it's going to be led on your tables. Of course, we're in a difficult situation where we need to, at the same time, hear each other, but keep the masks on and keep this distance for people who are not in their bubble. So please bear with us as we try to make the best of the situation. This is an experiment in itself, but you're in very safe hands with your table facilitators. They will guide you through the process. But I will start you off. So I should say we're going to be starting with this vision where we will be, as Mattia was saying, happened in Voices, we're going to be drawing pictures. With the priorities, we're going to be sticky dot voting on challenges which have come from previous rounds of consultation, so challenges that we already know are relevant at city level, building on this work, for you to put forward your ideas, which we will then cluster into solutions. You're going to be prioritizing them in your group, but we will also circulate all of the ideas that come out of this consultation so that you can have your say on every other group. Of course, in a normal situation, we would do that in person, but with COVID, we decided to keep you at your tables, so we don't have too much moving around. So the second stage will be online in a follow-up questionnaire. So timing is super tight. Please work with your table facilitators on this. They're going to be very strict with the timing, and it might mean they cut you off, but there will be time for discussion later on in the clustering session, so don't worry about that. We want to make sure that we hear from everybody around the table, because everybody, as we said, the important thing here is local knowledge, local expertise. When it comes to Brussels, we all live here and we are all experts in one way or another. So your first task, should you choose to accept it, you should see that on your table have appeared 5 A6 size pieces of paper and a pencil. So it's time to picture your future vision for Brussels in 2030. We want you to draw an image. You have 1 minute, an image that represents for you Brussels in 10 years' time, a greener, more climate-friendly city. This can be a symbol, it can be a picture of the city. You can let your imagination go crazy. No masterpieces, please. We only want very bad art. So maybe that suits some of you who've been drinking a little heavier, it suits you better. And your table facilitators, after 1 minute, will give you a minute each to introduce yourself and to explain your vision to the group, but only 1 minute. So please grab your paper, grab your pencil, and you have 1 minute to draw your future vision for a greener Brussels in 2030. Go!
Right, so next steps. Information in 1 minute. Even just an idea, it's not that doesn't mean
The one about
Okay, so that was the...
just different material.
What's the theme in the city? The nearest things are always the
Okay, once you've all finished, we're going to take these outcomes and circulate them to all of you, so you'll get a chance to see what the other groups have been doing. But the evening is not over yet, so if you have time to stay, you're very welcome to stay. The Tricoterie team is still around to take your orders, and I understand there is still food available, so if you're hungry and happy to stick around and have a beer with the rest of us, you're very welcome to stay another hour. But the activity we will aim to wrap up now, and as I say, we will circulate these outcomes, which will then be submitted via Innoviris to the European Commission to feed into their ongoing consultation on climate city contracts. So I want to say first a big thank you to your table facilitators who have done an incredible job. A round of applause. The heroes of the tables that managed to get you through this process, and very nicely indeed. And lastly, a big thank you to our great speakers and to all of you as participants. We really appreciate your feedback and input. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you next year at Pint of Science again, hopefully without the masks this time around. But thank you all very much, and enjoy the rest of the evening.